Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. John Kelly, profiler here, and welcome. Welcome today to two very sad cases that we're going to be investigating today and going over and see if we can come up with some reasoning on how Tylee Ryan and JJ Vallow were found dead on Chad Daybell's property. Okay, this is a mystery, and we're going to look into it and see what answers we can come up with. Please join us. And I think you're going to find it fascinating. Today, I have members of the STALK team with me that I'm very honored to have. I have Dr. Edward Mirsky, who is the purest of the pure when it comes to psychology. He is a doctor of psychology. He's a PsyD. We also have Marianne Glynn today, who's one of the best psychotherapists I know. She specializes in sociopathy, psychopathy, and also narcissistic personality disorder. She actually specializes in this, and certainly in this case, we've got a lot of it going on. Also, I'm very honored to be joined by my partner, Frank Adamson, who I've known for over 20 years, and Frank is the retired chief of the King County Sheriff's Department that was involved in the arrest of Gary Ridgway, who was the Green River Killer. I want to extend my thanks to Frank for all the hard work he did on that case. He was the longest running commander on that case. And also, I want to send out my appreciation, our appreciation, to the Green River Task Force, those alive and dead, that did such a fantastic job working with Frank and just working the case before Frank and even after Frank to come up with the DNA that would end up prosecuting Gary Ridgway years later, and for catching the Green River Killer is the bottom line. These folks did it. Okay. I also want to extend our deepest condolences to the friends and family of Tylee Ryan and of JJ Vallow. From our hearts and our deepest sympathies, for all those who've been affected by these two young children being found dead. At this point in time, I think it's important to say that everybody's innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. And, with that being said, let's get into the law enforcement into this and maybe brush up against some of the legal points that we can hit on. I'd like to introduce Frank Adamson. Frank, can you tell me, how do you see this case from a law enforcement perspective?
The mystery in this case for me is who killed the children. I think the police have done a really good job with finding the bodies which were missing in the beginning, and they were able to trace a phone record to near the property of Chad Daybell. So they've done some really good work, and what they've done with the crime scene we'll learn in the future. But the problem in a homicide investigation or a murder investigation or a death investigation is that you want to know who, what, why, when, and how. And they know everything from my perspective, but who did the killing?
That's what's the most important piece right now. Who's going to get prosecuted? All right. With that being said, let's hold it right there for 1 second, and then we'll move on to our psychologist, and we're going to move on to Marianne Glynn, great psychotherapist, and we're going to have these guys kind of go over it and see what they come up with. What kind of minds could do this? I mean, what kind of minds? To me, I'm just looking at evil. I am so angry at these two kids being murdered, okay, that I'm just focusing on the evil of it all. And, I'm not looking at the, psychopathology that might be involved. I'm going to leave that up to you guys to give me your 2 cents on that. We'll be right back. We'll be right back. Eddie, I'll start with you since you're our esteemed doctor on this team. What can you tell me about these evil nutbutt kind of people that, are involved here. I mean, we've got this Chad Daybell. He looks like this leader of this doomsday cult, and he wrote a book, One Foot in the Grave. This is when he was a sexton of a cemetery, and you know, pun intended. I don't think now he's gonna, before this is over with, forget about 1 foot in the grave. I don't think he's gonna have a legal foot to stand on before this is over with. Okay, because these kids are found on his property dead, and they have a video of this guy on YouTube or somewhere showing how to dig graves. This guy was into digging graves, how to dig a grave properly. And I'm sure law enforcement, along with the FBI, we're really going to have a field day with that video. But what's your thinking about this, Eddie? Don't let me lead you in any way. Tell me your feelings. What do you see?
Well, it seems like it's got a couple layers of pathology here. Um, I would say the Mr. Daybell is certainly has a lot of narcissistic personality characteristics. It, throughout his writings and appearances, he's got a superiority complex. So he even to the point of saying he can dig graves in a superior way than anyone else. I don't know how much talent it takes to dig a grave, but I guess he believes that. I guess to dig a really good one, it takes some real special skills. Um, and I guess he's got this cult mentality also um, operating. So, of course, you want as many people as possible to join your cult. That kind of validates his theories about things. Whatever those theories are, they're usually pretty crazy, almost like at psychotic levels. Most cult leaders have very bizarre, strange belief systems. So I'm sure he qualifies for that. And when it comes to killing children, well, now you've really crossed the line at a big time. If you can either do it yourself or maybe even in some strange way better to get other people do it for you, that even further validates some of these bizarre, crazy cult-like thinking. So like Frank said before, like the who done it, who actually committed the murders, um, we really like to find out. But it fits in with they said the cult thinking. Um, do some really, really strange things. We can go back to many cults, Jim Jones and David Koresh. So there's many cults throughout history. They've, when you look back, we do like a psychological autopsy with the leaders and the followers. Pretty crazy psychotic stuff.
Yeah, when I'm looking, you say bizarre people. When you talk about bizarre people, Eddie, I mean, we're putting him in on the same team with Charles Manson. He was going to take his cult out to the desert, and they're going to go down in a big hole, and they were going to wait for all the white people and black people to have a civil war and kill each other off, and then they were going to come up out of the desert. And they felt everybody would be weaker then from the Civil War, and then they were going to take over the planet. Okay, that's how crazy some of these doomsday preppers are. And then we have the other guy from Heaven's Gate. He's waiting for the spaceship to show up that's following the comet. These people are like really nutbutts. You wonder how they get people to follow them, but they obviously do. Okay. I think it was like 39 people that followed him. And he said, okay, here we go. It's time. Everybody commits suicide. So they all drank the potion or the Kool-Aid or whatever you want to say. They all died and supposedly went off to the spaceship that was behind the comet, that nobody ever saw. And then they were on their way to Planet X, wherever that might be. And, they had served their time on Earth. So again, like you said, Jim Jones. So we have all these crazy, crazy people just running around. Marianne, Eddie was talking about narcissism, people being, psychotic, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, give me your 2 cents on it, because this is right up your alley with, some of this stuff.
Okay, well, I go along with what Eddie said. There's definitely narcissism here. Chad wrote his autobiography. He wrote many books on what he said is information given to him after he had a near-death experience in his portal. Okay, that can get into other, like, a spiritual realm of what might be going on here too, speaking of evil. But he had all of the traits of a cult leader. He's basically has the power to influence people. So he's probably got a personality that's kind of dominant and comes across very confident in what he's saying and grandiose in his ideas and sure about them. They are bizarre, but they all have him in a very special role. And he's got people who are depending on him and believing everything he says. And but I also think that Lori must have had some of that as well, because she, her husband had reported to the police, in the police report, she saw herself as a god, and her friend said that she believed that she was in such an exalted state. And wasn't receiving like the normal prophecies she would normally get once she joined up with Chad, because Chad was the one who was getting all of these incredible prophecies and about the future and all. And then almost like when they got together, their narcissism kind of, joined, and she became the more dependent one, and he became the one more in control. I don't know what she was before that, but a lot of times when people end up in a relationship like that, they come from families most likely where someone has power and control and someone is dependent or a victim, and they can go back and forth between those roles in relationships. So something like that was going on, and he believed they were reincarnated and married in many lives, and this was their destiny. So it's very delusional. Stuff is very delusional. They seem to believe it, but they really made it work for them to get what they wanted. I won't go into that right now, but so they probably believed in their own specialness. They really, that they were delusional, but there's a fine line between that and just denial too, about your actions and the effect of your actions.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at this, and I'm sitting back, I'm looking at this. I'm looking at two people that were extremely delusional and extremely narcissistic. I mean, there's no question about it. I mean, this guy, writes this book, 1 foot in the grave. I mean, it's not on the New York Times bestsellers list. All of a sudden this guy gets this following, and his narcissism goes through the roof. Excuse me, And then when we look at, how, you brought up these two narcissistic people meet. I mean, it's like this perfect storm of narcissism coming together, right? Mm-hmm. And my God, the devastation that this storm of narcissism left, I mean, we got bodies all over the place here. Okay. He's like, they're to God and the prophecies, and, she's looking at herself as, a God herself. And I mean, this whole thing is just so mind bending. I mean, you want to talk about a mystery. This is a mystery. I mean, do we want to look at the brother? I mean, Alex Cox. Okay. I mean, we have him starting off. Please correct me if I'm wrong. We have him starting off and killing her ex-husband. Is that correct? Or her husband at the time? Okay. He claims that the husband or ex-husband hit him in the back head with a baseball bat, so then he had to shoot him and kill him. And he got off. He got off with self-defense, right? Then we have Chad Daybell's wife, Tammy. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. She dies, under suspicious circumstances. They've dug her body up and exhumed her, and they're testing to see exactly how she died, because she seemed to be a pretty healthy person. Okay, dies in her sleep. And then we have Chad Daybell and Lori, whose spouses are now dead, end up marrying, a couple weeks later, after Tammy, his wife, passed away. That's pretty interesting, huh?
And the other interesting thing is that they prophesied their deaths.
Oh, they did they?
Were having prophecies that they actually
Wow, they saw their deaths coming.
They said, yeah, we see Charles is going to have a car accident in this, several months. And then when he didn't have the car accident, they called it, that it didn't happen because of human agency. And then shortly after that, he was shot. And they said that about Tammy too, that there was a prophecy that she would be dying. I forget what it was from, but sure enough. Mm-hmm. And then there was the whole zombie thing, these people are turning into their children, and other people were turning into zombies, and Charles had turned into a zombie, right? Her husband, named Ned Stevens or something, Ned something. And that these zombies had taken over their body, so it was no longer Charles anymore. It was a zombie, an evil spirit that then they felt they had to rid the world of.
So now they have the prophecies of, her ex and his wife dying, okay, in car accidents or whatever. That doesn't happen. So now they die under suspicious, and they die anyway under suspicious circumstances, right? And now you're talking to me about zombies, okay? And they're saying that who turned into a zombie?
Well, they were saying, according to friends of theirs, reporting, their children were turning into zombies.
Their children were
the two that died. Charles was a zombie. They gave him a name, a zombie name, Ned something. And that was one of the things that when Charles called the police, afraid for his children, he reported that she's calling me a zombie, saying my name is this other name, which it isn't, and that she's a god and she'll do what she needs to do for her mission. And then she had the psychological evaluation right after that.
So it was Ned the zombie.
Yes.
I mean, you can't make this up. When we think as a team, we've seen it all, right? Mm-hmm. When we think we've seen it all, boop, here comes something so new and so bizarre, we shake our heads, right? Eddie, what do you think about all this zombie stuff and what Marianne just talked about? What do you see there?
Well, what we see is just almost layer upon layer upon layer of psychopathology. In psychiatry, there's a term called, if you've ever heard of it, it's called folie à deux. It's translated, it means it's a mutual delusional system. I've had a few cases in the past, none right now, but it could be a mother and a son, a father, daughter, or siblings, but it's it does exist in the world of psychiatry where two people kind of get together, you have the same delusions. about the same. I mean, for one person to have delusions is psychotic, but for two people to have almost exactly the same delusional system, it's kind of strange, very strange. So, but it does happen. These two people happen to somehow get together. There's Chad and Lori, and um, they had a lot of probably similar delusional systems. But like Marianne, I guess one of them, I guess the male, kind of dominated in that relationship. But they both probably on some level were vying for power, for recognition, status, in their own crazy world. It's really, obviously very, very crazy world. But, it just goes to show what the human mind, where it can take you sometimes, very strange places. Um, and when you look at the whole totality of the case, it reminds you of this is like an Agatha Christie murder on steroids.
On steroids.
Yeah, it's got so many twists and turns and angles and bodies and who done it. And I said before, I think at some point it will be unraveled. They're probably very slowly, getting to the truth of a lot of this, but it's going to take a while. Because I'm sure they've probably lawyered up and probably very reluctant to tell the truth unless maybe they get some really good deals, from the law enforcement. So, and maybe some reality might set in. We'll give you 20 to life instead of 50 to life. So,
Can I just add one thing?
Sure.
Just in case people don't know the difference between psychosis and delusion. A delusional disorder, what Ed was just talking about, means a false belief. You have some false belief that you really believe that is usually something bizarre. Could be something like this. It could be that the belief that your spouse is cheating even though they're not, or the people are against you or out to get you. Those types of things where the rest of their life they function and think normally. Lori had a psychological evaluation. They didn't find anything, wrong. So she probably didn't talk about this stuff. Most likely, I don't know. But psychosis, complete break with reality, like people who have schizophrenia or some other mental illness like that, it's completely different. It's completely. That's where there's a true break with reality, and the thoughts are not even coherent a lot of times. They might have delusions as well, but presents very differently than these guys.
Yeah, and before we take a quick break here, it's called folie à deux. And that not only we talk about it affecting these two, but that folie à deux, that psychiatric term on delusion can be even group delusion too, right? I mean, a whole group can have that be that delusional. Am I correct?
Sure. Yeah. It can be. The cases I've had are just two people in a family that somehow have this, but it certainly can extend to a group. Absolutely.
Okay, let's hold it right there, and we'll be right back. I've got a question I want to ask Frank to clear up a mystery here, because I'm getting a feeling of something else here that I think Frank could really answer. We'll be right back. Hi there, Marianne. You brought out that Chad was like the dominant, Lori was like the dependent, right? Now, Frank, when I hear that, what jumps out to me is dominant and submissive. In other words, now I'm going to talk about what we've seen many times over the years. Well, say 10% of the cases over the years, where you have two serial killers. One is a dominant and one is a submissive or dependent that follows the dominant. Okay. And the reason I bring out serial killers, because, we can call this whole situation, cult killings, cult murders. But when I look at the systematic murders to me that took place, it looks like to me that we're focusing on almost just fantasized fueled serial murders is kind of what I'm looking at. I mean, does that make any sense to you, Frank, that there's could be, not that there are, we can't say Lori's a killer, we can't say Chad's a killer. Is it possible that we have two people who are, or more than two, that are so wrapped up in this fantasy? And we know most serial killers are focusing on the fantasy, they're addicted to the fantasy, okay? Is it possible that we have a dominant and a submissive here that could be involved in, to me, what looks like systematic killings? And I am not saying they are murderers, ladies and gentlemen. I am just running a possible theory past Mr. Adamson, past Chief Adamson, because somebody killed these two kids that were found on Chad Daybell's property. And there's other people that have been murdered along the way leading up to these two children being found. Frank, what do you say?
It certainly is possible that you have a dominant personality that's affecting the other people here. But what I'm interested from a police perspective is when number one, who was last seen with the victims when they disappeared? And we know that in the case of Tylee, the last time she was known to be alive was in Yellowstone Park. And at that time, she was with Alex Cox and Lori Vallow. I think that the next thing I begin to look at is the crime scene, or in this case, the place that the children were left, where they were buried. And I want to look at that a little deeper. And what I see there is that, number one, the bodies were cut up. It's like someone didn't want anyone to know who they were or what they were. And so you have to ask, who would do this kind of thing? I mean, these lovely children, why would anyone do it? And so you're looking at that, and the thing that comes to mind there also is what evidence is possibly still left at that crime scene. Is there DNA in the plastic sack? Is there, hair or blood or something else from the victims that the police might be tracing? I hope so, but I don't know it at this particular time. But I also look at the behavior of the people after the bodies were found. We don't know that they killed the children, but what we do know is that they lied about where the children were. And so that's another aspect of this case that you've got to put together. What I'm hoping is that potentially, as these people sit in jail, or one of them sits in jail, that they turn against each other and give some information to the police that might resolve who did the killing.
Yeah, from your lips to God's ears, I truly hope that's the way it goes down. And, throughout history, we have seen the best way for a person to leave the influence of the cult is to be taken away from the cult and have time away from the cult, away from all these delusions and brainwashing and, not that day after day kind of stuff. So with both of them being in separate jails, I'm hoping, and I'm guessing Lori might be the one, but I don't know, because they're both extremely narcissistic, as you guys have brought out. I'm hoping that one of them is going to be away from the other long enough to, tell the truth, and something's going to be shook loose. But, I think the bottom line is it's going to depend on the deal that they get from, the courts and law enforcement. I think that's what might shake something loose. What about the brother? I mean, what do you guys think about him? Let me just tell you a little bit about Alex Cox. Alex Cox was Lori's brother who he shot and killed her ex. And the funny part about it is he's Alex Cox, aka Alex Pastinis. He actually took the last name of his wife for some reason. But I mean, this guy, I think you guys have seen him, right? Read about him. I mean, this guy, I don't know, boy. I'll tell you, he's a few cards short of a deck. I mean, he seemed pretty out there and, pretty, helpful and, willing to do whatever Lori suggested. As far as I'm concerned, I mean, he seemed, to be too much of a main pivotal person in this case. Do you guys have any feelings on him?
I believe a couple of things. That I think maybe a year or so earlier, he was seen fighting with his sister, and they were fighting pretty hard apparently at the time, and she had said something apparently that he would bring discredit to the family. So you definitely have to look at Alex, but you also have to look at Chad. So how do all these relationships, coexist? And why are there so many deaths related to these particular people? I mean, Alex ends up dead. He may have died of natural causes. We don't know, but why did he die? Chad's wife ends up dead. Again, it may have been natural causes, but we don't know that. Okay, and then of course, Alex shot Lori's ex-husband. So again, we've got all these different deaths that are occurring with regard to this case, and it's very interesting from my perspective.
Yeah, these aren't like helter-skelter deaths. This is like systematic kind of, executions, if you will, or something like that. If in fact, they were all murdered, which we don't know. And like I said, everybody's innocent until proven guilty. But you just see people seem to be dying or disappearing at the perfect time for Chad and Lori.
Right.
Go ahead, Marianne. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, Alex also assaulted her ex-husband. His name was Jack Ryan. I don't know if I got that right. His last name was Ryan. She was married 5 times. Okay. Tylee's father, Alex assaulted, I think it was in 2007 with a stun gun. He also was allegedly was the one who drove by and shot Brandon, who is a cousin of Lori, I believe, or Chad. I don't even know.
allegedly the one that took a shot at him.
Yeah. That hasn't been proven, but that's what the guy he believed it was him, and it was in the truck. So he's a bit unstable, something like that, and makes me wonder if Lori didn't have a certain amount of influence over him because he was willing to protect her, right, from Charles. He was told that Charles was coming over to kill her, and who knows why he attacked the other husband. Makes me wonder about her relationship with him, and how they grew up and his role as the protector in there somehow. Also, he was the last one to be seen with JJ, also the kid who was killed. So he seemed to be. Oh, and also the friend of Lori's, Melanie, when in talking to him, this is what she claims, that he also believed in the zombie theory, that he was influenced and also believed in what they were believing about the end of the world coming July, and the zombies had to be gotten rid of, and I don't know.
Well, he seems to me, and again, we don't know for sure. It's only my opinion, but he seems like a perfect kind of soldier. You know what I mean? To go out and do things for Lori.
Yeah.
And maybe even Chad, especially now that you're telling me it's alleged, that he believed in the zombies as well. So he was, if he was, all in on that. You know what I mean? But definitely, this guy seems very, very strange to me. And again, just my opinion. I can't put my finger on anything. And we can have our suspicions on who the killer is, who the mastermind is, but we do not know for sure. Eddie, anything else on Alex before we move on?
No, really, I'm just thinking of what Frank said and Marianne mentioned. It's awfully strange that they have all these bodies, and the medical examiner, the coroner, seems like almost all of them, it's undetermined, the cause of death. It's a strange aspect of the case. I mean, if they could give a definitive cause of death, it would be helpful. But it seems like quite a few, the final autopsy says unknown. It's awfully strange to me, because usually they pretty good at pinning it down. It's either suicide, homicide, accident, natural cause, heart attack, but it's just too many loose ends with that part. So maybe they need to exhume bodies. I guess these people are buried and have another autopsy done, second opinion kind of thing. I don't know if Frank would agree with that from law enforcement. Like, how many times can you have unknown cause of death in a case? There seems to be so many.
There's another aspect of this thing that I just thought of, and that's the insurance aspect. Apparently, Lori's ex-husband had quite an insurance policy, but he switched it at the last moment. So she didn't end up getting any of that. But you've got to look at that issue too. Is that there? Is it the cult thing, or is there a different motive in this crime? You've got to look at all these things, or are none of them relevant?
Or are they all connected? Yeah. They could be all connected.
Yeah, well, I guess even cults need money to survive. There could be multiple motives. Even with the children's death, the two children, Tylee, JJ, wonder, were they possibly victims of sexual abuse at some times, and the murders were to cover up that? Did they have life insurance on them? Were they sacrificed in some crazy, satanic kind of reason? So, and there can be multiple motives. It can be all three, could be a fourth, fifth motive. The main question here is why. Well, who did it, and what was their main motive, and were there multiple motives, which is possible.
Well,
and when you look at it, sorry, Marianne,
I-
when you look at it, I mean, and just real quick, if you want to go to Hawaii and live on the beach, cult or not, you need money. I just want to say that. Go ahead, Marianne.
well, after, that she didn't get any money from Charles's death. However, she did get widow's benefits and support because JJ was disabled. So she was getting like $6,000 a month after the death of Charles. And then when Tammy died, Chad got a life insurance policy of about, I think, around 450,000. So yeah, that might have played into it. But I think the whole, the idea of cult and their delusions and all that, I think, just like any, and correct me if I'm wrong, you guys are the expert on it. It's just like any serial killer or somebody who wants what they want, will find find a way to think about it so they can get what they want. They'll use their, just like an addiction, right? There's a conscious voice that gives you permission to get what you really are compelled to do. What's really the really underlying desire. And they used all, in my opinion, it's just my opinion, they used all of this to justify, and they used it to justify the end. The means justify the end. I mean, Chad and Lori, all the lies they told after the death of Charles, I mean, they're hiding something, I mean, they could say they had this mission, but apparently the kids were in the way. The JJ was an autistic kid, very difficult. He was on Risperdal, had meltdowns, needed constant monitoring, wasn't her child, yet she had responsibility for him, and she was completely caught up in this fantasy and this grandiosity with this guy, Chad, where they would be so special and it would solve all their problems, whatever inadequacies or things that weren't going well in their life, would just elevate them out of that. And so they wanted it that bad that they told themselves they had to, get rid of the zombies or whatever.
Yeah, it's like, well, we're really not going, if in fact they did murder the kids, which, as I said in the beginning, they are innocent until proven guilty, and I'm definitely not saying that they are guilty of killing these kids. I want to make that very clear. But in a warped person's mind, they could be thinking, boy, I want this so bad, or them to be out of the way so bad. I mean, they could feel like they're doing the kids a favor because now they're not human anymore. They're zombies. So,
yeah,
now you're the living dead or something. I don't want you walking around like that. So I'm going to do you kids a favor. We don't want you growing up to be zombies. So we're going to do you a favor and help you into the afterlife, where it's going to be more pleasant.
They even gave a narcissistic spin to, I'm sure in their own mind. And they even said that to some friends, why these people, that they were the kind of saviors. They were saving the world of these people.
They told people that?
Yeah. Even though they didn't say that about the ones who died, they said they had this system of getting rid of the zombies, and this was part of their mission. And they were actually getting rid of these zombies, every week somewhere, somehow.
Well, of course, they're gods, right? I mean,
right.
They're God status, so they got high priestess and everything, and God and whatever. And they gotta take care of all this and cast out these evil zombies. We're going to take a break here. We're going to come back for your final statements and any way at all you want to conclude. If you want to just take a minute to think about this and what you might want to add before we end. Hold it right there. All right, we're back. Marianne, your final thoughts on this whole case as it is right now. I'm sure more will be revealed in the days and weeks and months to come, but right now, any final thoughts you'd like to talk about?
Not too much, just to bring out that they thought that the world was going to end, right? It might be some of the reason, I don't know, Frank could comment, why it was kind of sloppy. There's a lot of sloppiness seems to all this. I don't know. I have no other thoughts, really. I guess that's it.
Frank, how about you? Do you see sloppiness, or you see organization here?
Well, I think we don't know who killed the children or why. And I think that's what the whole police investigation is about. And possibly they know, possibly they don't. If they don't know, no one will ever be charged with murder. And I think that's the bottom line.
Eddie, how about you? Your final thoughts on this? I mean, this is just unbelievable. This is one of the weirdest, horrific cases we've ever come across. Your final thoughts, Doctor?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The case has so many layers to it, so many twists and turns, so many aspects of it that hard to believe. You got, cults. You got, severely narcissistic people, which overlaps with, sociopathy, psychopathy, dead bodies, dead children, dead adults. I mean, like I said before, even Agatha Christie would probably be, scratching her head, say, "I can't understand this. What the heck is going on?" But it certainly can be solved. We always have to remain optimistic. I mean, there are answers. We know there are truths out there. There are answers that can be had. I'm sure the police you start with some theories, some hypotheses of what actually happened. As you know, and the prosecutors don't really have to have a motive, and they don't have to figure out the whys. We know that from a legal standpoint, they just need some evidence to convict somebody. In this, they don't. A motive is what juries like to have, but it's not necessary. In some cases, it's usually you can find one, but like I said, maybe there's multiple motives, and maybe that might, in the end, they'll find there were many reasons, so crazy reasons and practical ones, such as we need money to, like you said, live in Hawaii. It's kind of expensive there, so we need to live in both worlds.
Yeah.
Have one foot in the financially secure world, and one foot in the occult world, the satanic world. Maybe they try to do both. That's what it seems like.
It seems that way to me.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, I just want to thank you. I'm going to wrap us up here. Anybody else have anything they want to say before I do? I want to thank you all very much. I think this was a great session, brainstorming session today. I think we're going to see more to come. More will be revealed. I'm really, really optimistic about that. And I really believe that we're going to end up with somebody who's responsible for murdering these two poor young kids, because this is horrific. And this is extremely, extremely sad. To my audience, to our audience, I want to thank you very much for tuning us in. Please continue to subscribe. Please continue to send your comments. We're always happy to get any info that you want to offer. If you have any information on this case that you think can help the case, please contact law enforcement. We'll leave a number for you at the end of the video. I'm sure law enforcement would truly appreciate it. Something else we have another station, another channel called Thrive. And for any of you that are watching that have any kind of substance abuse or addiction problems going on in your family, please feel free to check out our other channel, which is John Kelly's Thrive. And we have some interesting educational information up there. might help you out, because you can be in a bad situation in a family that's filled with addictive illness, or having addictive illness of a loved one. So, with all that being said, thank you all so much. Again, we can't thank you enough. Please be safe out there and have a wonderful day. Thank you.